On today's episode of All Chiefed Up, rumors about running back Dalvin Cook leaving Minnesota are flying. Word on the street says Kansas City could be interested. Reed, Spags, and Veach continue to bolster the Kansas City defense as they sign yet another cornerback to the roster. We're talking about all this and more, so it's time to get All Chiefed Up.
What is happening, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to All Chiefed Up. If you're new to the channel and you love the Kansas City Chiefs, smash that subscribe button right now. Mike, word on the street in Minnesota is that Dalvin Cook could be traded after June 1st or even just cut because of dwindling production and a high salary. So it looks like the Chiefs could be suitors according to a lot of different guys. What do you think about it, Mike?
David Latham from Last Word on Sports.com actually throws the Chiefs out as one of a potential 4 suitors for Dalvin Cook. But to be honest, I don't think this is going to happen because Dalvin Cook is older. He's 27. We already have a productive running back here. And I just don't understand why we would want to waste any money. I'm going to go ahead and read something he says. He says, Pacheco is reportedly recovering from multiple surgeries, and the rest of the depth chart leaves a lot to be desired. Because of this, the Chiefs should be considered the front runners for Dalvin Cook trade. Barring an injury, it appears as though Dalvin Cook trade will not happen in 2023 offseason. But if anyone does go after him, it will probably be the Chiefs. And I just don't see that happening, Steve. It doesn't make any sense.
No, we've talked about the Chiefs running back room and how interesting it is going into this season. They like to keep 4 usually. Last year they had that 4th and Nic Jones. They used him sparingly, but he was there if they needed him. This year they still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire playing on the last year of his contract. Then they also have Jerick McKinnon back for a year, and of course Pacheco, like you mentioned. We've talked about who the 4th one could be, whether it could be Jerry Ely or Deneric Prince, or maybe they go sign another veteran running back. But I don't know if they would go after Dalvin Cook per se because he's a little pricey for what he puts out, man.
Dalvin Cook is kind of in the same boat that Austin Ekeler is in Los Angeles. Austin Ekeler demanded a trade. Nobody's calling for him. Nobody wants him. This is what's happening with running backs. Dalvin Cook's the same way. They're actually reporting now that Dalvin's probably going to get released. Nobody wants to trade for a 27-year-old running back. So this is another thing where you just get a lot of hype around somebody, and as soon as the big name becomes available, Chiefs Kingdom's like, let's go sign him. But it's not really going to happen, Steve. It doesn't make any sense. Pacheco had 170 carries last year for 830 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a 4.9 yards per carry number. If you look at Dalvin Cook, he had 265 carries, which is 100 more carries. He only had 1,189 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4.5 yards per carry. So if you actually give Pacheco more touches, Pacheco actually comes out having 8 touchdowns and 1,296 yards on the ground if you up his carries to match Dalvin Cook. That's better than Dalvin Cook. Why do you want to pay a 27-year-old running back more when we've got a young stud in Pacheco?
Right. This one just does not make sense in any form because obviously we're all in on Pacheco. You got Jerick McKinnon back to do that receiving back role when they need it. And then you still got Clyde that we got to fit in there some way or another. And he's playing on a contract year, so he should be playing his butt off. But Dalvin Cook's looking at a cap hit of $14 million in 2023 and $15 million in 2024. There were people talking about DeAndre Hopkins not covering Kansas City because we couldn't afford him. This one's even more astronomical, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening now that the Vikings have traded Zadarius Smith to the Cleveland Browns. When you got rid of Zadarius Smith, you cut a lot of some contracts, you cut a lot of cap space, you've got room to play now. I don't think it's necessary that Dalvin actually has to leave Minnesota now. I don't see how it's of any benefit to the Vikings. I think you need him there. When you have Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, I believe you have to rely on the run game. You have to rely on Cook to catch the ball out of the backfield a lot. Last year he had 51 throws to him. He caught 39 of them. He had 4 drops, 295 yards. If you compare that to Pacheco, Pacheco was a complete 100% catch rate, 13 of 13. He had 130 yards. So if you actually up those numbers, he's going to have 390 yards off 36 catches. That's still more production than Dalvin Cook. So when it gets back to the Chiefs needing to go after Dalvin Cook, that's completely false. We don't need to go after Dalvin Cook. We're not going to spend the money on Dalvin Cook. And we just need to sign our draft picks and move on.
Right. Mike, and you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco receiving the ball more often. That's something I wanted to see last year. I thought that could really elevate his game to another level. We saw in camp and preseason, he can catch the ball. He's a good receiving back, but we didn't get to see him do that a whole lot throughout the season. He wasn't utilized that way. But I think we could see more of that this year and really see a different side of Isaiah Pacheco that we haven't seen yet. And besides, if we want to target a 2017 Draft E running back, there's a really familiar one available. And since I loved stirring the pot, I'm going to say it. Kareem Hunt is still a free agent.
Let's not do it. Let's not talk about Kareem Hunt, Steve. Let's not do it. But I will talk about a guy you like, Jerry and Ely. If he possibly gets a chance to get on this roster, that's another guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. With him, McKinnon, and Pacheco all catching the ball in the backfield, Kansas City has a monstrous three-headed running back threat. That doesn't even count Deneric Prince if he can get on the roster, or any other possible cap casualties or camp casualties that the Chiefs can look at signing last year, kind of like we did Ronald Jones. So we've got plenty of options here. I just don't know why you'd want to go out and trade Minnesota for a running back that's 27 years old that's going to demand so much cap space. It just really does not make sense. I hope these rumors get put to bed. But with that being said, Brett Veach will probably pull the trigger on it tomorrow to make us look stupid.
No, I kind of doubt it. I just don't see it happening. And that's exactly the four that I would love to see the Chiefs run with this coming season. We'll see how it all plays out. It'll be interesting to watch. But I would love to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, and like you said, Jerry and Ely. I think he offers you a lot as far as receiving the ball, and I think it's time to get him in there, get him behind Jerick McKinnon while he's still a Chief, and let him learn exactly how he does things, because he's been very effective in our offense, and I think Jerry and Ely can take over where he leaves off. He's just got to learn a little bit about that pass protection, picking up blitzes and things like that, and I think we're good to go in that department.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave you with one more stat here before we move on to a different subject. Isaiah Pacheco, according to PFF, had an overall grade last year of a 74.6. He had a 73.6 rushing grade and a 71.1 receiving grade. When you compare that to Dalvin Cook was a 67.4 overall. That was almost 7 full points lower than Pacheco, a 72.1 rushing rating, which is lower than Pacheco, and a 61.6 receiving rating, which is 5 points lower than Pacheco. Across the board, Isaiah Pacheco is a better running back, and he's younger, and he doesn't cost so much on the cap. So yeah, Pacheco here for the win, guys. It's not even close.
Easily. So according to Arrowhead Live, the Chiefs have officially signed cornerback Ekow Boye-Doe and waived wide receiver Ty Scott as a corresponding move. Mike, tell me a little bit about this Ekow Boye-Doe.
I really like Ekow Boye-Doe, Steve. I like the name Ekow. That's a pretty cool name. But yeah, everybody in Chiefs Kingdom is going to know him. He comes out of K-State. He plays corner. He's 6 foot, 177. PFF grades him as a 62.8 last season with 5 pass breakups. He actually got better in 2021. He was even better in 2020. So he progressively got a little worse. I don't know if that was scheme problems. I don't know what that was. Maybe he just became the man and they started throwing the number ones at him all the time. So there's that looking at him. And also, if you take a look at his RAS score, Steve, he's a 7.36. I know you're big with RAS scores. You probably don't think he ranks too high here, but he's okay.
I'm not big on RAS score, but I do think they mean something. I don't think you can completely ignore it. Like a 7.9 RAS score doesn't scare me, but what does scare me is like that 4 RAS score from Nico Remigio. That's the only time I would bring up something like that.
Yeah, so he ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at his pro day. That is elite. That is elite. The 10-yard split is something to be desired. His vert was 37. His broad was 10 feet. He had a 4.22 shuttle, I believe. Those are all just good, not great. But he does offer you a lot of physicality. He offers you a lot of special teams play. Pete Sweeney actually had tweeted out during the UDFA session last week. During 7-on-7's tryout, Kyrie McDonald deflected a ball into the hands of tryout BJ Foster for an interception. Tryout Buddy Johnson had a diving pass breakup, and tryout Ekow Boye-Doe pass breakup drew a verbal compliment from defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. So Spags had his eye on him all the way back. He impressed him. Now he signed a contract with the team, Steve. I think this tells me that we just keep investing into young talent at that corner position, that defensive back position. If you go to Chamari Conner, to Nic Jones as a 7th-round pick, Ekow Boye-Doe, Khalif Hallisey, you name it. They just keep adding stuff. I'm telling you, this is scary if you're a L'Jarius Sneed fan, because we got a lot of heat from yesterday's video about this saying, hey, you guys are crazy. He's never going to get traded. Guys, this is just more proof that something could be on the works here.
I think this is just a typical case of Chiefs fans getting too attached to a player in a business where these guys just have to move around for money's sakes. We know that the Chiefs don't like to pay cornerbacks. We talked about it in our podcast yesterday, and everybody went crazy saying, no, you have to keep L'Jarius Sneed. There's no way you can get rid of L'Jarius Sneed. The Chiefs are so much worse without L'Jarius Sneed. But the fact of the matter is, like you said, Brett Veach and the Chiefs have invested so much in that defensive back room. There's a lot of young talent in there, and he's still adding to it to this day. Like you said, Chamari Conner, Khalif Hallisey, and Ekow Boye-Doe just this year. So yeah, I think it's a very good chance we could see a L'Jarius Sneed trade coming, or at least we're just going to see his last year in Kansas City.
Yeah, Steve. So we even had some Washington fans come on, comment on that video, and act like their first-round pick, Emmanuel Forbes, and their second-round pick that they reached on would be more beneficial to their team than trading for L'Jarius Sneed, and that they wouldn't give us no more than a 6th-round pick. We've actually said that Sneed probably could only garner about a 4th or a 5th rounder at best, so that's not crazy. But to say that Emmanuel Forbes is going to be better for your team than L'Jarius Sneed, that's getting a little crazy. I don't think L'Jarius Sneed's a bad player. I think he would be great in Kansas City. But again, when Brett Veach goes out and finds all this talent late in drafts and UDFAs, and he can bring in all this DB talent, and he just keeps stacking it, this is a bad sign for L'Jarius Sneed coming up on some big money. He's either going to have to take a massive pay cut, which I do not see, or he's going to have to walk. I know Chief fans don't want to hear it, but it's the sad reality, Steve. We just do not pay these guys.
Right. Someone's going to offer him a lot more money than the Chiefs are going to offer him. That's just a fact. And those Washington fans, I think that's just people that don't really know football that well. L'Jarius Sneed doesn't have the big name like Jalen Ramsey or whoever else in the corners. That's why they don't think he's that good. But if they actually knew football and they've been watching it, L'Jarius Sneed's what? Like a top 5 corner in the game right now? It's something crazy like that. Obviously, they're crazy to say that a rookie is going to do much, much better than L'Jarius Sneed and all that. I do like Emmanuel Forbes. Don't get me wrong. I like that pick. I thought it was a little high for him. It was a little bit of a reach, but I liked him as a cornerback coming out of college. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. There's probably a lot of other targets out there besides the Commanders that could be after someone like L'Jarius Sneed or even Clyde for that matter.
Yeah, you're right. But coming back to the Chiefs, we signed Hallisey, as you mentioned. Boye-Doe is now on the roster. We actually give some money to Anthony Witherstone Jr. out of Merrimack and Nickelback Reese Taylor out of Purdue. Both have been impressing. We've also, Chamari Conner, we traded up for him, and Lamar Jackson, we just signed him. I don't think that's anything of importance, but that is a veteran that come in that could provide some size, provide some special teams play. We're stacking this room. We're stacking the DB room, Steve, and this is just not a good sign. If I were L'Jarius Sneed and I were under contract this year and they're stacking this much corner help, safety help, DB help in general, I'm getting a little nervous if I want to be in Kansas City. So I'm probably telling myself, hey, if I want to be here, I want to put on the red and gold, I'm going to have to play ball with Brett Veach, or I'm going to be playing ball with a bad team somewhere in the NFC.
L'Jarius Sneed is going to be a ball hawk this year, son, and he's going to sack the quarterback more than he ever has. So let me tell you, he's going to have a rocket up that butt.
A rocket up that butt.
Cannot wait to see it. Steve, so All Sports Culture released a graphic today showing the number of losing seasons of all 32 NFL teams, and surprise, surprise, there's 2 people at the bottom with 0 losing seasons in the last 10 years. Pittsburgh Steelers and your Kansas City Chiefs. Did we expect anything different from Andy Reid and Brett Veach?
Absolutely not. The Chiefs does not blow my mind, not one bit. But what does is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's weird that they haven't had a losing season in the last couple of years. After Ben Roethlisberger kind of got old and retired and everything, you figured they would have like a down year, and of course they have, but they still have had winning records. That's amazing to me.
That speaks to Mike Tomlin, Steve. Me and you have said if Andy Reid ever goes, Mike Tomlin would be at the top of our coaching chain.
Absolutely.
You got to give him credit. This guy's been able to do it with Big Ben Roethlisberger. He's been able to do it with Kenny Pickett last year, and I think they're only going to get better this year. They actually hit on the big wide receiver everybody wanted last year, George Pickens, and he actually looked good. They had another solid draft this year. But there's a wide receiver on that team, Steve, that if we wanted to look at a little bit of trade, I would take him, and that's Deontay
Johnson.
Right. You like Deontay Johnson? Is that something you'd look at?
Love him. I would have looked at that a long time ago if I was Brett Veach, and heck, he might have by now. I mean, I think he explores all options, right? He does his due diligence on everything, so he's probably looked at that. Maybe it's just something that couldn't get worked out. But yeah, Deontay Johnson would be huge with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, so last offseason, Steve, I actually said if we want to trade for a wide receiver, we should have looked to Pittsburgh for maybe Chase Claypool. He gave us a little bit of size. He was that X receiver. He actually ended up going to the Bears. He didn't do too well. But I think in our offense, he would have done pretty well. A lot of people looking back was like, well, you better be glad we didn't do that because Chase Claypool sucks. But to be honest, I don't think if anybody can come to our offense and do well with Patrick Mahomes, because that's the mentality now that we can take a water boy and turn him into a Pro Bowler, Chase Claypool would have been the best wide receiver since Megatron.
Yeah, well, I think fans just did not like Chase Claypool and his attitude and his demeanor. I don't think it had anything to do with his play on the field. But either way, 0 losing seasons in the last 10 years. Would you have thought way back then when we were watching Todd Haley run this team into the ground that we would be talking about this later on? Like, hey, Andy Reid came in and changed the entire culture of this franchise. It's absolutely amazing, and what a time to be a Chiefs fan, man.
Right. Alex Smith helped turn the tide. I think he deserves a lot of credit. Then Brett Veach was pounding the table for none other than Patrick Lavon Mahomes back 2 years before we actually drafted him. Hats off to these guys. They knew what they were doing. They're building a winning culture here, and I think it lasts for a long, long time. I think it'll last long after Andy's gone, too. I think we're at that point as a franchise and as a city that now we're not going to go back to accepting that mediocrity and that losing mentality.
So speaking of the Chiefs being winners, it's that time of year when everybody starts talking about who can knock off the reigning supreme AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. Mike, the NFL posted this graphic asking if anyone could do just that. Who do you think, if anyone, could knock off the Chiefs this year and win the AFC West?
Nobody's winning the AFC West but the Chiefs. It's that simple.
Right.
Nobody's going to do it. Can they steal a game from us? Yes. I think everybody in the division has a shot to steal a game. If I had to rank those in order, I think the Chargers have a better shot than anybody to steal one. Then I would give it to Denver, and then I would say the Las Vegas Raiders last to steal the game. I'm not sold on Jimmy Garoppolo, even over Derek Carr. I think they've done Derek Carr so bad there in Vegas.
Right.
But other than that, I'll say Sean Payton coming into Denver, he might be able to get that offense rolling a little bit. Then again, he's got rust, dude. That's like trying to drive a school bus with two wheels. Like, it's going to be so.
That's a struggle bus he's driving over there in Denver, so we'll see how long it takes him to get that thing back on the road. But either way, man, why is this always an off-season talking point? You think by now it would kind of be a non-issue. Like, we know the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West right now, and we're not going to question it until further notice. But every year, that's a thing. Like, oh, the AFC West is so loaded and so great. Who's going to knock the Chiefs off this year? I don't know why it's always a talking point.
Steve, they just say it for a lot of publicity. That's just something that Phil Simms is going to come out with, when somebody's not going to his Twitter. Colin Cowherd's going to say something stupid about the Chargers if people are not watching his show. Skip Bayless is going to do it, when they're getting bad ratings.
So it can piss off Shannon.
Right. It's just so they can just be relevant for 5 minutes.
Right.
This happens every year, Steve, and it's just the Chiefs. The Chiefs own this division. We're going to own the division for the foreseeable future. It kind of irks them. I know it irks people. They don't like us because we're a flyover state and we're middle America, and they just do not like it. They hate it. But I love it that they hate it, Steve.
And they're going to sweep the AFC West this year.
I think
just to rub it in a little bit.
A lot of people are saying Denver could get us one. I happen to believe that if I think somebody's going to get us, it would be the Chargers by accident, because the Chargers always play.
Any of them could get us. Even the crappy faders could get us, per se. But, I mean, it's not happening. We're going to run the table there. It's going to be nice.
We all know the Chargers play like there's no tomorrow. If they played the Chiefs 17 times, they'd have the best effort, the best season they ever had in their lives, minus the 17 losses.
Herbie Hancock, he always goes off when he plays the Chiefs. Everyone thinks he's a great quarterback, and then for the rest of the year, he just sucks really bad. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, man,
I'm tired of it.
Quentin Johnston, they're loading up out there trying to beat us.
They took his teammate, too. I didn't even realize that, but what was his name? Darius something. They took him in the third round. So they got his wide receiver sidekick, too. So I think they're loading up to get ready to lose Keenan Allen and maybe...
Bunch of tryhards. Bunch of tryhards out there. They're trying hard to stay at the bottom of the cellar there. Good job.
So yesterday we dropped our second podcast here on YouTube. If you didn't get to check it, make sure to click on that right now. Get in our comments, and thanks for subscribing and hitting that bell. There goes a sight from my soul.